We just have the cover up.
The
So we
reveal.
can say, look at this. We're here for you. We're doing the show. We're letting it go. We're letting it breathe. Bam. We are here. It is the waiver wire special for week 6. And in the National Football League, there is a lot to get to. Dr. Jene Bramel is scrambling because there's so many injuries. Ugh, I have to say, with quarterback injuries. We know who we're going to start with. Cecil Lammey, Sigmund Bloom, Jene Bramel, and it's starting with injuries. So Dr. Jene Bramel kicks us off with a discussion about injured quarterbacks. And of course, that means some Dak Prescott talk. Let's go to Dr. Jene right now. Dr. Jene, what do you got? Okay, Bloom, we are jumping into the waiver wire upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report. It is your report. It is available at footballguys.com. And actually, Andy Dalton is not the number one quarterback, but Justin Herbert is. Let's talk about the kid.
Yeah, and look, folks, I'm not saying poor me, but I know, someone told me yesterday Gardner Minshew's available in 51% of Yahoo leagues. You know, Minshew's been a 20-plus point performer every week. I don't even include him in the waiver wire show, as has Justin Herbert. But just in case, the idea here is, well, look, we could do a separate discussion here, Cease. We can do a tangent of what do you do if Dak Prescott was your quarterback? Who should you target? And we'll talk about Andy Dalton. And obviously plan A and the shortest distance between point A and point B is just get Andy Dalton. Should be fine. We'll talk more about that. But there are quarterbacks that you might be able to trade for. And some of these quarterbacks, while putting waiver wire percentages on them might seem absurd in your typical one quarterback leagues, I'm also trying to give folks some priorities of those number 2 quarterbacks. Herbert was a waiver wire pickup, but quarterbacks that you weren't drafting to be your starter that some people might have behind, a Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, a Lamar, a Patrick, and maybe Lamar is someone to look at, by the way. Just throw out a trade offer. You never know. But Herbert, it's almost a chance for us to talk because we don't do Monday night recaps. Last night's game was just mwah. And
it was riveting.
As was Sunday night's game. Mm-hmm. And every once or twice a year, Cease, as we've been doing this for a long time, once or twice a year, there'll be a week where the primetime games, I'm getting shivers just thinking about this, Cease, as we were talking about storytelling before we go on the air, where the game reminds you why you can't look away, why you'll sit through the Jets and the Broncos, because it's not just players rising to the occasion and transcending themselves. I don't want to go into some sort of sweet folk song about Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I feel like Ryan Fitzpatrick, two sides of the coin, Cease, right? Like the sadness of the Dak Prescott injury, but the joy, the pure joy of Ryan Fitzpatrick. Can't you just picture Ryan Fitzpatrick as like a satyr playing his flute and all of us just following him and wanting to watch everything he does everywhere because he plays the game with such joy? And Justin Herbert in a Monday night game to remember that embodied so many great stories and really just was a terrific snapshot of where these franchises are, good, bad, and ugly right now. Just showed everyone, here I am. And what's wild, Cease, is he has that look, kind of like young Ben Roethlisberger, where he just doesn't even understand what's at stake and how dangerous it all is. And he just plays. He just plays. And it's beautiful. And it actually makes me a little sad, Cease, and I love Anthony Lynn. And I think we're going to look back at Anthony Lynn as one of those head coaches who gets all of his guys on the same page, gets everyone pulling in the same direction, but tactically just lacks that bit of aggressiveness you need in the 2020 NFL. Because now with Justin Herbert and what you have in this, they were playing without the right side of their offensive line. Mike Pouncey's out for the year. And Herbert just stands in. You see the arm talent, you see the strength, and then you see, remember, Keenan Allen wasn't even out there for most of this game. Austin Eckler isn't out there. What could this offense look like with all these pieces and somebody using them in a visionary way? Hopefully we'll get to see it before the end of the year. Everyone will be healthy at once. It's the Chargers. I don't know. But yeah, I just think that for everybody out there who hadn't got a chance to see Justin Herbert, because the Chargers aren't exactly a big national visibility team, it was wonderful, and I wanted to give him that top slot.
Yeah, give him the top slot and give him all the recognition because he's running the offense as designed. He's not getting bothered by the rush. And Bloom, the talk before the draft, and there's always talk, right? And, and talking to people that even were at his pro day where he wanted to be mic'd up, but then felt like kind of embarrassed, like, oh, I might say something wrong. So he didn't get mic'd up. He told NFL Network, like, no, I'm not going to do that. He is kind of socially awkward.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that is working to his advantage in a way. Now, you mentioned Ben. I'll mention something, and this is a compliment. It's not a compliment. But it's like Joe Flacco.
Sure.
Being like, I don't know what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
And yeah, that can work to your advantage. He's not a huge douche here. Like Joe Flacco.
Derwin James goes to Twitter and he calls him Herbu. That's wonderful. I mean, and with Flacco, for folks that don't know the stories about Flacco with the Ravens, because it was supposed to be Troy Smith, and he got sick. And here we go. And Flacco's like driving his grandma's old beater to training camp and things like that. Like, come on, rookie, got a first round pick contract. What? And they hit him. This is the Ray Lewis era Ravens. The defense came at him and really roughed him up in training camp. And he just popped up goofy and smiling. And they're like, okay, we like this guy. This Flacco, we might be going somewhere with him. And I think, Herbert, you can see the Chargers have really rallied around him as they should.
Yeah, as they should. Let's get to the rest of the quarterbacks in 10 to 20%. Drew Brees, Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, and there's Fitzmagic. And there's Dalton, but you say 50+% in 2 QB or super flex leagues. So let's break this one down.
Yeah, and again, in a lot of leagues, these guys aren't going to be out there. But think of this as your trade targets for Dak Prescott teams that don't have a backup you're comfortable with. Drew Brees, he's going to get Michael Thomas back, and he still really can't push the ball downfield that well, but he made the throws he needed to in that classic game. And going into the bye, with Michael Thomas coming back in week 7, you would expect him to be more than viable. Derek Carr, and here's a big story, again, as we've been chronicling it, Cease, we're getting back to early career Derek Carr, exciting Derek Carr, and just any kind of fantasy strategy that incorporated the idea that the Raiders were going to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. It's coming about, and Carr is doing it, putting up the numbers. Ryan Fitzpatrick, again, I'm going to spend like 10 minutes talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick if I get off on a tangent here. The point is, after talking about when are we going to see Tua, not necessarily a great game against Seattle, after the way he played against San Francisco, there's no rush because this team has so much fun playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and look at what they're capable of. And then we get to Andy Dalton, and I think the glass half empty take is this, that when you have a 4th and 5th string offensive tackle, Dak Prescott can paper over that. Andy Dalton can't. I mean, we'll see, but he still has all that same structure around him, the talent at the skill positions, the defense that's going to get him in high scoring games. And he's a starting quality NFL quarterback still. And you saw he wasn't overwhelmed at all coming in and making those plays to get that key win against the Giants. And I think that Dalton is going to be more than viable. Remember, you also have the schedule on your side here for him. Someone else I didn't include that I easily could have is Matthew Stafford coming off of a bye. He might be out there. That's another thing that makes doing the waiver wire piece hard this year is you never know who's getting released from fantasy teams because we're scrambling. What if Tennessee and Buffalo play? What if they don't play? I thought I was going to have Cam Newton. Now I don't have Cam Newton. So maybe Matthew Stafford's out there. He would be a 10 to 20%er in this same group. And, good luck if you had Dak Prescott. And we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it with Jared Goff and Teddy Bridgewater. Differing values, 7 to 15% for Goff and 5 to 10% for Teddy, but that's the next little mini group.
Yeah, and Teddy, maybe I'm underrating here. But he's got a tough matchup against Chicago this week, and his ceiling is modest compared to these other quarterbacks. But, I love what he's doing. Tied for first place. How can you not root for Teddy? Goff is a matchup play. Now, the matchup against the Giants didn't go well. The matchup against Washington was beautiful. That was even with rain and a game that got out of hand in the second half. So you see this Rams offense, you see Goff. If you pick the right spot, things come easy to him. Things come easy to this offense, and you have easy fantasy points. If you pick the wrong spot, it can be a zonk. But we're kind of back to where he was last year, stabilizing our trust in him.
Let's get to the 1%ers, including Drew Lock, CJ Beathard, and yes, Jacoby Brissett is there as well as, changes happen, Bloom. You got to be ready for it.
Yeah, and I think that with Drew Lock, again, it's just checking your waiver wire. And look, I think that, we may get to a point with one quarterback leagues being like 2 quarterback leagues where any starter who isn't just going to go out there and like puke all over himself is someone worth rostering. And Drew Lock certainly isn't going to do that. I mean, we're not going to see him. We'll see when Noah Fant's going to be back. We're not going to see him with Cortland Sutton this year. We'll see when KJ Hamler's going to be back. Not as exciting as what we had going into the season, but just check, be thorough. Then you have Beathard. I don't know if we're going to see Garoppolo this weekend, Cease. And I don't know how Kyle Shanahan's going to dress this up, but it's a crisis of confidence. I mean, maybe he got knocked a little silly. I hate to use that term because it's downplaying concussions, maybe an unreported concussion. Maybe something happened last week, but we all can see it. Go back and watch the game against Arizona week 1. He was terrible. We haven't seen him put together a good game yet this year, and we know that Nick Mullins kind of disqualified himself, and you still get to benefit from the play calling and play design of Kyle Shanahan. Plus, this offense is getting closer to having all hands on deck. And then there's Brissett, and same thing, right? Like when the coach has to answer the question, yes, we haven't even considered taking the starter out. Now the clock is ticking with Rivers. And there is something we have to work against here, which is that Frank Reich is going to prove that he was right and probably make it excruciatingly difficult. It's going to have to go like this for 3 or 4 more weeks. But hey, Phillip Rivers says, I'm up for that. He's not going to change his style. He's going to go out as Phillip Rivers. We know that about him. So Brissett's not exactly exciting for fantasy, but certainly in your 2 quarterback superflex leagues, it's time to add him.
Well, he better not wait too long before the season's out of hand. So he's not doing the job that Matt Rule is, Bloom. Nope. You're talking about Teddy. I'm like, I love what Matt Rule's doing.
Yeah.
Even our man Daniel Jeremiah tweeted the other day, like, look at how the teams just rallied around and taken on his personality. So it's good. It's fun. One absence, our pot stoner degenerate, Jason
Alex Smith
says, any Alex Smith.
Oh man.
Would they go back to Haskins? Would they trade Haskins? Does Kyle Allen pull it out? I don't know. It's a situation I largely avoid, other than McLovin and, of course, my man Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, I just think that with Smith, he would be the last option in any given fantasy week that I would want to start. And maybe he will get the starts, but watching him against the Rams, and some of it is Aaron Donald and everything he was doing, but you just don't see the mobility. What are the things that made Alex Smith, right? You don't see the mobility. You don't see his arm strength. You don't see his ability to test the defense downfield. You don't see the surroundings for him to start to build back up to that confidence. So that's why I don't have Alex Smith in there. It was a nice story, but I think the fact that Ron Rivera is saying, hey, when Kyle Allen's ready, he's going to be the starter, means he even saw what he needed to see.
Whew. Okay, we saw what we saw with the running backs and the injuries in week 5. So Dr. Jene Bramel joins us again to go over the running back injuries for week 6, including some big ones. Dr. Jene, take it away. Alexander Madison. His name is Alexander Madison. Everybody watch Hamilton. 25 to 50% for Madison. Daryl Henderson's 20 to 40%. I almost just want to talk about Madison exclusively and this Dalvin Cook situation, Bloom, but Henderson's close enough. We got to talk about him as well, even though you saw the snaps. Like right. Akers got a few snaps, and then Brown and Henderson almost had identical snaps, but Henderson obviously more touches and doing more with what he's got. But let's talk about Madison. A lot of people have been stashing him, but again, wide netting it. There's your drink. We're wide netting this thing because Alexander Madison might be out there, needs to be on your team.
That was almost the beginning of a good freestyle, Cease. Alexander Madison. People have been stashing him. Madison
going to miss my shot.
That's right. And the shot is week 6 as Dalvin Cook is out for week 6. And they say he's going to be reevaluated after the bye. So we'll see. We'll see if Cook is ready. And unfortunately, Dalvin Cook is not the kind of player that has given us confidence that he'll be back on a timeline. Not that we have an exact timeline, and that he won't re-injure whatever has gone wrong. So there's Madison. There's still Mike Boone. We'll talk about him. I don't think that Madison is necessarily a league winner in this role. It's why he's not a 50+% guy, and this isn't an injury that's going to put Dalvin Cook on IR. So you can see the Vikings' expectations of when Cook will be back. That being said, Madison is a player. I would probably be more inclined to pick him up and trade him to the team that had Cook, or if you had Cook and you just need him and you get away with just spending a lot of waiver wire bucks to make sure you have him, do you do that? I think his value might be a little lower than the perceived value, but the perceived value is high, and this is that injury. It only took week 5 for Madison to matter.
And remember, it's windows. Capture those windows. Daryl Henderson's in a window, Bloom.
Yeah, Henderson. This is going to be, and I know people say Belichick backfields and stuff like that. This is going to be so frustrating. But what you see from Henderson is, I think that he offers the passing game upside, and Cam Akers might do it too. We might just see week to week these guys trading off the role in the game. I almost think that Sean McVay, by design, is not going to settle into any sort of set share of the backfield, 60% this year. Like you said, the snaps reveal a different story than the stats. But what we can see about Henderson is just running with conviction in that short yardage goal line area. That's the running back I want out of these 3 right now, because he's running hot, even though he's not necessarily the most creative runner at the second level. And then you saw the passing game contributions. And at some point, you just step back and look at the fantasy numbers. 3 out of 5 weeks, Henderson's been the best Rams running back. And he's the one that's most valuable, even though if he was dropped and you pick him up, then next week you might want to drop him. I mean, this is just how this Rams merry-go-round is going to be.
Yeah, and it's something McVay told us. So it's not even like shocked or anything. It's like, well, he said it was going to be like this, and he's following suit. Sometimes when they talk Bloom, you listen.
Yeah.
Justin Jackson, watching the game last night, it was clear like Jackson had more juice. It seemed to me, and certainly more instinct. Sometimes Joshua Kelly would get a little lost out there unless the hole's like right in front of him. Justin Jackson, you don't get that. He's going to find the hole, and that's why he is up next in your upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report at 15 to 30%.
And what this reflects is Jackson can help you. He can get you like the 15 points, the 12 points to get you through a week at running back 2 or be a flex play. Going into his bye, that's another reason he's not a priority pickup. I think the structure of this is going to be he won't get more than 20 touches in a game. I don't think he's going to get short yardage work. I think that Josh Kelly is actually better suited than Jackson for that. Plus, you have Jackson's injury history. And I feel some more cease because Jackson was only a 1%er last week. And that, to me, reflected I've always felt like Jackson's a better runner than Joshua Kelly, but the way that Kelly seemed to push him aside once Jackson got hurt, and hearing some stuff, I think it was Daniel Popper from The Athletic saying, if Jackson gets hurt, that might be all it takes for Kelly to be the number 2 back. And I think that was the plan, although maybe we underestimated how much Kelly's fumbles factored into Anthony Lynn's decision matrix on how he was going to allot the workload without Austin Eckler. But, Jackson had some nice plays. Like you said, Cease has a lot more juice, a lot more agility, flexibility than Kelly, who's more linear. And without this right side of the line, Turner and Balaga, that linear back isn't going to find a lot of room to run. Things could be a little different. I still think Kelly has value. He's going to come soon to a hold on segment, but Jackson has more value right now and certainly should be owned in every league, even though he's going into a bye.
Is this the range where you'd put Phillip Lindsay? Because again, wide net.
Yeah.
Running back 2 flex sounds good to me. And if they want to beat the Patriots, if they actually play this week, people might have dropped Phillip Lindsay anyway because he's hurt, and then the Broncos aren't playing. So people have been scrambling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't know that Lindsay's going to have the touch baseline that Jackson does, but Lindsay's going to maintain what he does for the rest of the year, where Jackson's going to go back in the background a little bit more when Eckler's back, and he will be back at some point. But with Lindsay, you also have the Melvin Gordon injury upside. So I think that's about right, 12 to 25, 15 to 30%. And, gun to my head, Cease, I'd probably say I would prefer Lindsay to Jackson right now, just because you have a chance for Lindsay's value to grow in week 6, and you don't for Jackson because he's on bye.
Well, it's a 2-headed thing in Denver, and it's a 3-headed thing in Los Angeles when everybody's healthy. So there you go. Let's move down the list. Hey, there is Heron Ass. Devonte Freeman, 3 to 5%. He's doing stuff. Bloom. We gotta take a moment just to appreciate Devonte Freeman.
Yeah, volume. Play players against Dallas. Maybe Kenyon Drake will have a good game Monday night. I do think that Wayne Gallman is showing more than Freeman, but maybe that veteran. It's Jason Garrett, So it's that veteran familiarity, assignment football, and all that. And hopefully the Giants' offense it gets more viable. Although again, Jason Garrett, Freeman at least can be your emergency play, emergency running back too. Although again, if you have Devonte Freeman, if you can get something for him, it's time to trade him.
You sounded like Rozelle there, Bloom. Volume. He did a show with Mike Patton where was one of his things. Let's talk about Mike Boone. 1%. People have been waiting for Boone. I've been learning how to pronounce Matt Breida. He's up next. JD McKissick, all 1%ers and all players that can help your fantasy team.
Different flavors here depending on how deep your league is. Mike Boone, I think he's roughly equal to Alexander Madison. And I know week 16 sticks out in everyone's head, but while Cook is out now, we're a Madison injury away from Boone mattering. And Boone is a quality third-string running back. Physically, he's tremendous. You've got J.D. McKissick, who's your emergency play, who at least the last few weeks, and look, he got 3 catches or 4 catches from Alex Smith, but Kyle Allen also fed him before that. And Kyle Allen fed Christian McCaffrey last year, too. So McKissick is a good emergency play, maybe in that 10 to 12-point range. And then you also have Breida. He's got burst. Now, the main thing here that puts Breida on this list is Jordan Howard was a healthy scratch. And that is one more obstacle to Breida having value removed. This offense is coming along. It's still not a good run blocking offense, but the pass blocking has been vastly improved this year by the Dolphins, which at least sets up scoring opportunities. It was Myles Gaskin last week. But see, I think rational coaching would dictate Breida is one of those players. You don't ever want to give him 20 touches a game just because of his injury history. But at the same time, you want him to touch the ball maybe 15 times in a game and have this be closer to a 50-50 committee and also get Breida's burst in play more for this offense. So I think Breida's arrow is pointing up.
The arrow always pointing to Dr. Jene Bramel when you need injury information. And we get to the wide receiver section. Dr. Jene, what are we looking at this week? Now, whereas the running back section, Bloom, might have been a little thin for listeners out there like, oh, the wide receiver section's pretty thick, and you can't believe who's out there, including Brandon Cooks. Will break your heart, but when he doesn't, it'll be pretty good. And then Mike Williams. Let's talk about, again, last night, just watching that, thinking about it, projecting it. It manifested, Bloom.
Yeah.
Mike Williams and Justin Herbert is a good-looking thing.
Oh, man, yeah.
Beautiful.
And so is Deshaun Watson and Brandon Cooks. And Cooks might have been dropped in a spite drop. But now we can see more play-action passing, more downfield passing, and Brandon Cooks is still very good at football. Dare I say maybe better than Will Fuller? I think that he can do a lot of the things that Fuller can do. He's more consistent than Fuller, more durable. I'd probably rather have Cooks than Fuller right now. And then Mike Williams, just stay healthy, man. Just stay healthy. Wow. Just wow. Because what you love, and it's reminiscent of Fitzpatrick sees, what you love is, it's one thing when you're an NFL player. That means that your body is pushed to the very limits of what your body can do. It's another thing when you're an NFL player who's already at the limits of a tremendous athlete and then striving to transcend that. And it puts your body at risk, but it creates these moments, truly breathtaking moments, like we had multiple from Mike Williams. And, it was amazing, that last play. It's great, Cease, when it comes down to the last play, that it really is like a life or death thing for these teams. And you saw Mike Williams fighting like it was life or death, and you saw Marshall Lattimore fighting like it was life or death. And thankfully, it doesn't sound like Mike Williams got hurt on that play, because that's what happens when you exert everything you have. But yeah, the window's closed. It was just kind of simple math. If Justin Herbert can do this with Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton, what can he do with Mike Williams? We got to see it. It was the best game of Williams' career, and hopefully a lot more of that to come.
Beautiful, wonderful, and awesome. And Chase Claypool is out there.
Yeah.
Like, there is no doubt, but not at the top of your list, Bloom. Let's discuss that. And Henry Ruggs, 25 to 50%, as the Raiders are doing some really good things. But the Claypool thing, of course, he's not going to score 4 touchdowns again, but it's too good to put it back in the bottle, man. I don't care who's healthy.
Yeah, it's sad for James Washington. I think we're just looking at James Washington as somebody that we're waiting until next year when Juju Smith-Schuster probably is elsewhere. And Deontay Johnson maybe moves to the slot. Chase Claypool, I was wrong. I was so happy to be wrong. This is like the Le'Veon Bell moment. Hating a Steelers pick can work out as a Steelers fan. He is an outside receiver. You see his athleticism really translating. And like you said, you're not going to put it back in the bottle. Chase Claypool has roughly the value sees of, say, like Michael Gallup. You're going to have weeks where it's 2 for 40. You're going to have weeks where it's 5 for 150 and 2 touchdowns. Maybe not 4 touchdowns again. It's just the way this stuff's going to be divided up. We'll wait to hear more about Deontay Johnson's back injury. I do think that it's James Washington who's going to lose snaps, so don't overreact if you have Deontay Johnson. It's good for Ben Roethlisberger, and it's good for the Steelers. Again, against Cleveland this week in the big showdown. I do think that Claypool is somebody that if you miss out on him, you feel okay. Because if someone's willing to spend more than half of their money on him, then go for it. It's a long season. If there's one thing that we should get out of this year so far, Cease, is generally being conservative might be smart because the churn on the waiver wire this year has been greater than any year I can remember, and certainly a lot greater than last year. Henry Ruggs, with 2 catches, over 100 yards and a touchdown, right? And they're going to go vertical, and he looks healthy, gets a week to rest, not that he necessarily needed it. So you like with Claypool and Ruggs both cease. And by the way, this rookie class of receivers, with the exception of Jalen Reagor's injury, all of these guys are showing out right away on track to be the player that in our best case scenario we envision they could become. All of them, Ruggs, Chenault, Justin Jefferson's had his moments. T. Higgins, Lamb, and Judy. Judy might
Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk, right? Leaping over fools. Judy might be the most underwhelming guy. Sorry, Cease. He might be the most underwhelming guy out of this incredible group. But Ruggs, you see the alignment of usage and talent, and Derek Carr getting it done. Remember, in the first week, they had that Ruggs ratio where they were getting the ball in his hands all kinds of ways. They had a more diverse plan for the Chiefs, but I think Ruggs, I have them both 25 to 50. I probably prefer Ruggs to Claypool.
I remember watching Claypool down at the Senior Bowl, and it was like, is he a tight end or is he a wide receiver? He's a
wide receiver.
He knew how to use his big body.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That's something Michael Pittman didn't do real well down there. I was disappointed. Let's move on in your wide receiver list, and here comes Travis Fulgham.
Yeah,
people wondering we were going to talk about him. McCole Hardman, of course, because Sammy Watkins hurt again. Shocker. Preston Williams back, so he's a 15 to 30%er as well. Let's talk about this group.
And I'm glad that, again, Mike Kay told the story very well, an Eagles beat writer, about Travis Fulgham. Just him having a football career was kind of against the odds. He was a basketball player in high school. And the SAT prep teacher was also the football coach and said, have you thought about playing some football, like to keep in shape, when it's not basketball season? And here we are. And I get it. And see, this is one of the situations like James Robinson. I remember saying in the week 1 waiver wire, and smart people bid half of their money on James Robinson after week 1. I remember saying after week 1 waiver wire, if you miss out on, and this is going to make me cry and make me feel bad for saying these names above James Robinson, Benny Snell or Malcolm Brown, and you end up with James Robinson, you might end up with the best pickup. If you miss on a Chase Claypool this week and you end up with Travis Fulgham, you may end up with the best pickup. Now, I get it. Alshon Jeffrey's coming back. Deshaun Jackson's coming back. But then, Cease, if I say Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson's health is the obstacle to Travis Fulgham having lasting value, okay. I mean, so that's the thing. And the thing also is the chemistry between Wentz and Fulgham. It's just, you see it. You see the trust. And Wentz is one of those quarterbacks who plays kind of within his own structure and will lean on players that are getting it done for him, and Fulgham's getting it done. So it's a tough matchup this week for Fulgham. Maybe I would put him into the lineup this week against corners. We'll see. But I think that Fulgham has more staying power, as the initial reaction has been, well, it was a 1 week wonder because of who's coming back. But when you look at who's coming back, you wonder they're going to need Fulgham a lot this year.
They're going to need Fulgum a lot. And when you're Old Dominion and you wind up at the Senior Bowl,
Yeah.
people getting drunk this morning. You got some skills. You've got some skills. So skills to make mills for Hardman and Preston Williams.
Yeah,
too.
I'm so caught up on these great stories. Hardman is just Watkins is hurt multiple weeks. Tear. Andy Reid called it a tear. Preston Williams making that big play to break through finally in the end zone. Ryan Fitzpatrick making everyone have fun here and gets the Jets this week. So yeah, a lot of potential tough choices, especially in those short bench leagues.
Short bench leagues. Christian Kirk's going to be out there. Sterling Shepard's going to be out there too. 5 to 10% for Kirk and 3 to 5% for Sterling Shepard this week.
Kirk was an emphasis of the game plan early against the Jets. It was kind of honestly disappointing against the Jets when you see 380 passing yards and Kirk has a solid fantasy day, but not that big breakthrough play. He's still the primary deep threat, even though Andy Isabella did some things when Kirk was out. Sterling Shepard's ready to come back from his toe injury in the next week or two. Probably a high floor PPR play, certainly a better play than Golden Tate, although it looks like Darius Slayton is emerging as the alpha there. But these are the things we have to be thorough about. Marvin Jones, if he was dropped, also a 3 to 5%er with the schedule coming up for Detroit, and hopefully Matthew Stafford can get hot. I would probably put Marcus Valdez-Scantling in that area also if he was dropped, because we always have to remember those players coming back from bye with the crunch this year may have been dropped.
Our man Diego coming through with a 90s rip for all of us kids of the 90s. Don't want no short bench leagues. That is for sure. Final wide receivers to talk about include Randall Cobb, Keelan Cole, and Demarcus Robinson. Moving on up, they're all 1%ers this week.
You're seeing Cobb get more of those targets to move the sticks, the easier targets for Deshaun Watson. Everything did open up. Now, it might have been the Jacksonville defense without their two best players. Tennessee this week on a short week of rest up for Houston, but we just saw a Houston offense that made sense. See, it wasn't bad jazz. It was maybe a little better than smooth jazz. I think smooth jazz is underrated, actually. We weren't talking like Thelonious Monk or something, but Randall Cobb, maybe he's the hi-hat, in this, just to keep the beat for this offense. You also have Keelan Cole. Now, the DJ Chark ankle doesn't sound like it's a thing. We'll see. But Cole had another skillful touchdown. I just see what Cole is doing. I see Jacksonville passing a lot this year, and I think that he's someone at the end of my bench. If I have to have him in, he can still come through for me. Demarcus Robinson, remember whenever Tyreek Hill got hurt, we were looking more at Mecole Hardman, and what did Robinson have in that first game? See, 6 for 172 and 2 touchdowns or something like that. Something ridiculous. So because it's Patrick Mahomes, Robinson has that kind of ceiling when Watkins isn't out there. Then we saw afterwards he wasn't going to hit it very often, but that 1%er, again, if you have to throw him in this age of fantasy football when we're not even sure if games are going to be played, Robinson is a fine emergency play because you get a piece of Patrick Mahomes.
Let's get some tight end discussion fired up, but that first means Dr. Jene Bramel joins us here to discuss the injured tight ends entering week 6. Dr. Jene, what are we talking about here? Very full list of tight end help. Yeah. And this is unusual, Bloom, because like most seasons you get your tight ends and you're lucky to find something to help you out if you need help. This year and this week, you've got guys out there that can help people, including Mike Gesicki. He's up at the top 12 to 25%.
And you saw the big playability, the 70-yard play, fueling him to a solid game for fantasy. And again, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, what he's doing with this offense. It's the Jets this week. So someone got impatient with Gesicki. I think you're going to ride out the ups and downs unless you have one of those 3 or 4. How many are there now that we're playing every week, Cease? I mean, there's Andrews, Kelsey, and Kittle, and Waller. And those are your sure things. Johnny Smith, I think, is making a bid to be in that group too. So Gesicki's fine if you don't have one of those guys. And again, I'll call him out for saying that, Ryan Fitzpatrick's the best teammate. Well, actually, I can't remember his name now. There's a follower I have, who played with Ryan Fitzpatrick at Harvard. As one of his teammates. Okay. He was recounting stories of the Ryan Fitzpatrick comebacks. Twice he came back down 21-0 in halftime. And in the weight room, he would take on anybody. even the big hulks on the offensive line and say, I can outlift you. So even back then, I think at Harvard, they knew that Ryan Fitzpatrick was made something different, and Mike Gesicki definitely knows that too.
Yeah, Gesicki and Fitz doing their thing. Jared Cook, Austin Hooper are both 5 to 10 percenters this week. And, hey, keep it up. Keep it up and do some more.
Yeah, I think that Hooper, you saw what we liked here was Kevin Stefanski is not that straightforward. He came out with a more pass-heavy game plan. Hooper racked up some numbers, even with David Njoku. So 2 weeks in a row, Hooper's been viable. You like seeing that. Jared Cook, it's the same as last year, right? It doesn't take many targets for him to be viable. It was that long touchdown. And at this point in fantasy football at tight end, if you have someone that has at least some chance of getting a long touchdown, then that's probably one of your top 10 or 12 options. Of course, not this week with New Orleans going into a bye.
Let's talk about the 3 to 5 percenters, including Gerald Everett, James O'Shaughnessy, and there's Irv Smith. Oh, second team Irv Smith. Anyway, 3 to 5 percenters for all those three guys right now.
Yeah, I think that with Irv, the sad thing is you see them get him involved, you see him produce, but at the same time, it's still a modest ceiling. And this is just the structure of the Minnesota offense, especially with Justin Jefferson doing more. And we may end up in a situation, Cease, where there's just not enough to go around for Jefferson and Smith to be good plays, and they may kind of cancel each other out. We know that Adam Thielen's going to do his thing. James O'Shaughnessy, just watched the neck thing with Tyler Eifert. And Cease, if I say Tyler Eifert neck, immediately you're like, no. I mean, they're saying it's not a big deal. I feel like we're going to hear about this.
Neck injury not a big deal?
Right. Maybe he'll play next week, but James O'Shaughnessy could be the primary receiving tight end. And again, it's going to be a pass-heavy offense, an efficient offense. We know he has some pass-catching skills. And we know that Gerald Everett has pass-catching skills. We know he has athleticism. It's just getting the targets. But at least he flashed that upside last week with 4 for 90. He also had a touchdown, I think, on a rushing attempt this year. That if you have to throw him as a desperation play, he can come through for you. And he's probably worth equal to Higbee. Higbee offers that same upside. Both of them offer the injury upside if one of them get hurt. So it's just nice to see what Everett's doing. And I'm thinking, see more like next year, who's going to pay Everett, and that's going to be when you really want to have him on your fantasy roster.
That's going to be outstanding. Some outstanding play from Jordan Akins. Cameron Brate there moving on up. Darren Fells as well, and Rob Gronkowski. So a couple of teams.
Yeah.
A few tight ends.
Yeah, 4 tight ends, 2 teams. Akins was out with a concussion. Fells had an uncontested long touchdown. So that's the kind of play that Akins might get with this decent Jazz offense from Houston. Brayton Gronkowski. Well, Tanner Hudson's there to mess it up, right? And we'll see when Godwin's going to come back, if not this week, next week. So maybe the increased opportunity for tight ends is just a small window, hence the 1 percenters. But this week against Green Bay, if you have to go to the waiver wire, you have to throw in a Cameron Brate or Rob Gronkowski. It could work out for you. If Akins isn't back from the concussion this week, then Darren Fells going up against Tennessee is someone we're going to look at.
We're always going to look at, Public Enemy. And we're always going to look at Public Enemy and be like, innovators, right? Ahead of their time, leading the charge, Bloom, and certainly just pulling on the heartstrings every single time, because in this season where you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you've got to take some control. So control what you can control, right? That's what athletes say all the time. Don't worry about what you can't control. Control what you can control. And you can control this, because every single week on this show, as Blackie Lawless used to say, we ask for a little audience participation. So I want you to all join in with me as we say, cue the chuck. Whoa, hey, so shut him down.
Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like if you have to play him even in 2 quarterback superflex league, you'll regret it. Phillip Rivers, similarly. Dak Prescott. Anthony McFarland. And look, we saw Benny Snell just get more work, especially in short yardage. McFarland wasn't a big emphasis in the game plan. Keyshawn Vaughn. Whew, talk about a welcome to the NFL moment for him. And I just don't think there's not much there. Carlos Hyde missed another game. I don't know if that shoulder thing's going to go away. Todd Gurley looked good enough that Brian Hill, I don't think Brian Hill should be an obstacle to you. I mean, Brian Hill and Mike Boone, I think, are similarly valued, even though Hill is running well and making the most of what he's got. Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton. I mean, if you're playing T.Y. Hilton this year, and it's more of a short bench league, and I encourage, by the way, let me take a moment to say, if you're listening this far into the show, because we wide net it, drink, like you said, a lot of people getting drunk early on this Tuesday morning. Let me know if there's any way I can make this better to help you, and ask questions. I'm on Opiner, or you can ping me on Twitter, you catch me at the right time. Because sometimes, Hilton isn't a clear shut him down, drop him no matter what, but if it's a choice between Hilton to, pick up somebody like a Mike Williams or Brandon Cooks, that's easy. A McCole Hardman or Preston Williams, that's easy. Christian Kirk is where it gets a little bit tougher. But I don't want to count on a Colts quarterback if I have to. Anthony Miller, just not really going to happen there. Tyler Higbee's tough. You had that 3-touchdown game, but I just think by design, he's not going to be a big part of the passing game. Traquan Smith, we can throw back going into the bye with Michael Thomas. So these are tougher decisions. And Cease, I think if it feels like you're making more transactions than you ever have, that's because that's the kind of year it's been, and we're only going into week 6.
And we are only not even halfway there yet.
Yeah.
So what a wild and amazing ride. And sometimes on that ride, you want people to go with you that, you just, you have fun, right? Yeah. When they're in the car with you, when you're taking that road trip, you want them along for the ride. Maybe they don't contribute much. It's like that buddy when you're on a road trip and you go to fill up gas and the guy's like, I forgot my card or whatever, so maybe he's not contributing as much.
Yeah.
He's got a good mix on the stereo, right? Knows how to throw in some good music. So sometimes in fantasy football and in life, you just got to hold on. And who are those week 6 hold-ons?
Cecil, you're reminding me as a longtime Fish Tour veteran. Because you hosted a show called Riding the Shotgun, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you were in the shotgun spot in a Fish Tour vehicle, you had some very important responsibilities. Remember, this is before GPS. This is before cell phones. Right. This is before. Well, this is the age of like radar detectors. Although that's only if you're like bougie. So you had very important duties. The music, like you said, starting at the top with the music, detection of things, assistance with things, and sometimes you keep someone along, even though I didn't have a driver's license at the time. So I tried to be as useful as I could be, including navigation. I tried to be that guy that.
And you were over 21, by the way.
I didn't get my driver's license until I was 24. Long story. Joe Burrow in a one quarterback league. He has a couple tough matchups coming up, and I just don't know how much will go on with him, but I still think there's some upside there. Baltimore running backs, every week, Cease, we're saying, hold on to your Baltimore running backs. One of these weeks, the offense might explode. One of these weeks, it might sort itself out. It's the Baltimore offense. We know the ceiling there. Hold on to Dereness Johnson. Now, again, his value's more on the Mike Boone level, but he still has that injury upside. You still saw him with that nice run that helped clinch the game for Cleveland. Duke Johnson's tough because Romeo Crennel is indicating that, hey, next week it might be a Duke Johnson week. And I think in a more high-scoring back-and-forth game script, we could see more realization of Duke Johnson's value. I would say that Le'Veon Bell is a hold-on. And you got to love that, Cease, like a new low for Adam Gase. I really wish you would talk to me instead of speaking out and liking posts on the social media. Like going to Adam Gase and saying, hey, man, maybe you could do better is going to work. That's not going to work. So I do think that if Adam Gase comes to his senses and does something he said multiple times he's going to do, Bell should be catching 6, 7, 8 balls a game. So don't get too quick on the trigger there. Or Jerick McKinnon. And Cease, I think McKinnon stands for this idea that I try to remember as we go through the churn of a fantasy football season is once we see that in this season that a guy can play, and man, Jerick McKinnon can still play, I try to be reluctant to drop that player. And obviously, as we go through the bye weeks, as we go through the uncertainty of COVID fantasy football, you might have to drop Jerick McKinnon. And I don't understand why he wasn't used very much, but I would rather not. I would rather hold on to Jerick McKinnon. Similarly with Cam Akers, who had a nice run at the end of the game. Similarly with Tony Pollard, I mean, anyone can get hurt. You know, if Ezekiel Elliott goes down, even with Andy Dalton, Tony Pollard could still be a league winner. Cedric Wilson, not as valuable as Tony Pollard, not as tough a position to fill, but still, all things being equal, I'm not dropping Cedric Wilson for a 1%er. Sammy Watkins, I mean, when is he going to be back? How good is he going to be when he's back? Is he going to get hurt again when he comes back? Sammy Watkins is not an obstacle to adding someone I want to add. But at the same time, he's, again, for some, he's a hold on. For some, he's a shut him down. I also forgot to, it was just too painful to put AJ Green and shut him down. You shut him down a while ago. We're just not going to talk about this.
Yeah, that happened secretly. It was like one of those secret transactions.
Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I mean, we're talking about the San Francisco quarterback play deteriorating, disintegrating.
Yeah.
But it's Kyle Shanahan play calls, and these guys got juice. So, again, Deebo Samuel versus Christian Kirk. I'm probably holding on to Deebo. Similarly with Ayuk. Hopefully Kyle Shanahan can get some things going. Similarly with Curtis Samuel, as he's still getting his 8 or 9 touches a week. I think that as this offense is really getting settled in and gelling, you're going to see a big Curtis Samuel play. You're going to see him take a quick slant to the house or a crossing pattern that no one can keep up with him or something. So I'm not giving up on Curtis Samuel yet. Joshua Kelly still has Justin Jackson injury upside. So even though you're disappointed if you played him in week 5, don't be too hasty on him. And then we get to Zach Ertz. See, you ever have an agent slide into your DMs?
It's happened.
Yeah. Well, look, and the agents have been great assistants to us as we were coming up in the draft world. And I understand why they're agents. They advocate for their players. Zach Ertz. We can really do a great glass half empty, glass half full thing here. Because I saw, he's caught 20 of 21 catchable targets from Carson Wentz. So a lot of what's falling short here is that Wentz-Ertz chemistry, which is the last thing we would have thought gave way. Now, Benjamin Solak, in his film study, and he's, obviously an Eagles, not an Eagles homer in a way that he slanted, but he's paying very close attention to the Eagles, said it's just that Ertz is getting bullied at the stem. And it's throwing off the timing, and he's just not getting that timing and space that he needs because of how that's going. But at the same time, where Ertz has been, he's looked like he's basically at the end of his career, I think that's more those short targets. Because the one thing Ertz has never had in his game is run after catch ability, tackle breaking ability. That's just not Ertz's game. Ertz's game is getting open on time and gobbling up those catches and yards and keeping the sticks moving. There's so much talk, Cease, about this connection right now and how to get it going that I feel like this is kind of a squeaky wheel gets the grease situation. And it's tight end. It's a position that's very difficult to find an answer. I don't think you should drop Ertz yet. I know that it's been real rough if you've been playing him. It just makes sense that against Baltimore this week, Ertz should be an emphasis of the game plan. Ertz could go off to the tune of 9 for 70 now, maybe not 9 for 90. But the point is, I'm waiting on Ertz. I'm not ready to drop him yet. It could be also a buy low moment, depending on how cheap he is. But these are the decisions. These are the days of our lives, like sands through the hourglass, Cecil. So what do you think about Ertz based on what we've seen and based on what we're hearing?
Yeah, it's tight end. I'm not dropping him. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's where hold on comes in. And that's where we are here for you. It is the Audible, of course. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. And thanks for doing all those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Bloom, you've got on the couch later today, right?
Paul Charchian. It's a Paul Charchian week, so you know that Minnesota's like at the center of the fantasy football world. We time this. We always schedule the show, and then something happens with Minnesota. So yeah, we got that coming up later. And as we have Tuesday night football season for the first time, because we weren't doing the waiver wire show back when it was Joe Webb getting the Tuesday night win. We have waiver wire show before the week is up. So maybe check back in on that report. I'll add some Buffalo and Tennessee players if necessary tomorrow.
And that may actually happen. So as always, thanks for checking us out, footballguys.com, signing up for that free daily newsletter. Thanks for following us on social networking. And, again, like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you. Your love and energy drive us. We appreciate you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. For the great Dr. Jene Bramel, the fantastic Sigmund Bloom, I'm Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.